Hi everyone, I'm Rob King and I do enjoy a turbo cider. If you've watched the channel, you've seen quite a few. But today we are going to go right the way back to basics and brew a cider with genuine apples. So this is brew number 17 and this is real apple cider. But before we can begin, some self-assembly is going to be required. This is not my strongest point, but here we go, fruit press assembly. This is our starting point. Our first step is to give them a bit of a clean, all washed ready. Well, we're getting there. This is it. We are down to the last few apples. And they're not the best. That's it. We're all chopped. Pressing next. So here's where the fun begins. Still no juice. Jeez. I'm going to put it on the mat, see if that stops it moving. I'm running out of gap here as well. That does seem to have fixed the movement problem. Mostly anyway. At this rate, I'm going to get a glass of cider. Oh, I can see some juice come out. Finally. Woohoo! I don't have a lot of space left here. I'm going to have to try and create some more blocks. So I confess, this isn't quite going the way I expected. So let's go back to the good old turbo cider, just to revitalise. Ooh. This one is a 9% just carbonated. Oh, very refreshing. It did come out slightly higher ABV than I expected. But hits the spot today. Let's turn the camera around. So we're going to try this again. It turns out that actually the apples needed to be more finely grated, so that's what I've been doing for the last hour and a half, grating up the apples, and even without pressing there's now more apple juice sort of dripping through. So that is definitely a positive sign, but we're going to go back to the press. Now this is exactly how I thought it would have worked the first time. Success. This is a Camden tablet. One of these will help prevent bacterial contamination. So I can use one of these per gallon. I've got less than a gallon here, but I've got to crush it into and mix it in. So there's still a little bit of juice coming through. So I'm just going to let that happen. Going to mix that in. I'm almost exactly on 3 litres. Letting it settle for a little bit does often let you get another bit of a twist out of it. Not this time though. Before we move to the fermenter, first step is to see exactly where we are with the hygrometer. That looks pretty good. So this apple juice is 156 gravity, which is amazing. That is above what we were looking for. So 156 is probably going to put us more close to 7%, which is fabulous. Our next step then is to add 2 items before we put this in the fermenter. First is 4 grams of Fermento. This is a yeast nutrient. And second, we have 5 grams of pectolase, which is going to help clear some of the pectins out of the colour of the apple there. So that will all help us. In the past, I have put pectolase in unnecessarily with some of the store-bought apple juice, but for this one, it's definitely necessary. We're going to move the apple juice to the fermenter. Oh, it smells nice. Now, the choice of yeast is interesting. We're going to go with Nottingham yeast. And I did mull this over. Previously we've used champagne yeast, which actually a very clean yeast, but a Nottingham yeast has a bit of a fruity flavour. So we're hoping to get a good result out of real apples and a combination with the Nottingham yeast. So this is 3 grams of Nottingham ale yeast. One further slightly last minute addition, 3 grams of DAP, which is a type of yeast nutrient also, but nitrogen, which again helps the yeast really get going. We are mostly done. I'm just going to give this a bit of a swish, make sure that yeast all mixes in. Last but not least is our airlock. Okay, we are good to go. Right, washing up is all done. So this was our taster, and in theory, 1056, it should come out quite on the sweet end of the range. We're about to find out live. Oh, and it does come out sweet end of the range. Very nice. I am so looking forward to this one. Oh, yes. Home Apple Cider, Day 2. Things have really calmed down. There's an occasional bubble you can see just coming through there, but the colour has really changed. And in addition to that, we've really started to get the lees at the bottom. Day 6. We are down to about 1 bubble per minute going through the bubbler. And other than that, though, things have really quite calmed down. Plenty of cleaning to do there at the top of the demijohn, but other than that, looking good. That is starting to clear already. Look at this, cider, day 14. Real cider is on day 21. I can't believe how lovely and clear it's been. It cleared within 2 weeks actually, so we could have done this a little bit sooner. So today is hydrometer reading, and then I'm going to move it to the keg. That has gone very dry. 1002, I would say. That is 7% ABV. So it's come out, but I think will be a little dry. So we're going to do a taste test, and we may add a little non-fermentable sugar. We'll see. This is our first taste. It smells quite alcoholic. Tricky. That is dry, and it's not carbonated yet. We're going to add a little bit of carbonation to it, but it's nice. Tricky. That's got a lovely mouthfeel to it. It's definitely got an alcoholic kick to it. Also got very appley aroma to it. So it's landed in perfect place. Decisions. keg has been in the fridge. That stops any foaming as we sort of siphon in. I'm going to add a bit of CO2. And it's also an opportunity to check for leaks. I've been having lots of problems with this, and I've just redone all the connections on it. Either the cartridge has run out, or I've got a huge leak. Don't think I've got a huge leak because I got pressure. That has probably given me enough of the CO2 protection anyway. We do have quite a lot of lease at the bottom. I don't want to take any of that if I can help it, but we'll see how we get on. Because it's so clear though, it's quite easy to see how close I am. And there is a protective cap on the bottom of the siphon, which also helps. Okay. So I am going to add 70 grams of non-fermentable sugar. This will bring it up 8 gravity points, which isn't a huge amount, but just give it a bit of sweetness. So we're going to carbonate this over the coming week in the fridge. Right, make sure that's off. Bring this up to 10 psi. Gas has stopped going in, so it's there. Now, we actually have air in the top. So the CO2 that I've just put in should have pushed the air up, but I need to release some of that now. What I would normally do is force carbonate, and I am going to force carbonate a little bit, but only to help mix in the sugar I've just added. The key thing here is not letting any of the liquid go into the regulator, and the reason we lay it flat is it creates a bigger surface area for the CO2 to mix with. Not exactly long enough to force carbonate, though it will get it started. Key thing, mixing in that sugar. Cider can go in the fridge. The lease on this one is a bit like a sandy shore. Here's the plan. I'm going to move what's left of the apple cider into bottles, but I'm going to make a small adjustment to it. First, I'm going to have a little taste test, and then based on that, I'm perhaps going to add a little sugar and perhaps a little glycerin. So let's just take a tester. So it's plenty carbonated. We're okay on that front, but it could just do, for my personal taste anyway, with a little bit more sweetness, and I'm going to put a little glycerin in. So I'm also going to, for bottling, have to change the head here from the beer tap head to the spearhead, which I'm going to also do. So it'll give me a chance to take this off, add the extra ingredients, and then bottle. So when I take the tap off, I'm going to add 180 grams of erythritol, and I'm going to add 10 milliliters of glycerin to the cider. Let's bring the pressure down on this. 180 grams of erythritol. Oh, that was a mistake. Well, this is definitely not going to plan. Whatever does. I'm not sure how much I've lost there. Having lost some there, my 10 milliliter calculation may now actually be wrong. I don't exactly know how much I've lost. Well, that's 10 mil. Okay, so I've attached the party tap. This is going to give me a chance to try it. I'm just going to try and take it slow. It will be a bit foamy, I imagine, after all of that. Oh, that is much better. So what we've got now is I've just lost that edge of tart that you get, and well, it's not sweet, it's probably medium level of sweetness, but yeah, that is much more in my ballpark. So that step was a success. On to bottling. If there's any left. This is just pressurizing. We had a smidge left over, so you get to drink it. Now, the little taster was good anyway. Yeah, it does have a lovely appley smell. Got that full mouthfeel. Maybe I overdid the glycerin actually. Perhaps I've done a little less. But and I guess I based it on there being 2.5 litres and there was closer to 2. So my calculations were out by 1/2 litre. Cheers everybody, good health. Thank you so much for watching this video on home fresh apple cider. Well, it's in the bottle. I've got 2 bottles now ready, and one I'm going to give to my sister and brother-in-law, who very kindly provided the apples and the picture on the front of the bottle, so that's going to be sort of shared around, and the other one is for me to try. If you've enjoyed these latest shenanigans, then please do like and subscribe. The button is somewhere down here, I think. So thank you so much. Now it's in the bottle and we've tested it, it's time to reflect and look back at some of the lessons learned. Well, first of all, it has absolutely been great fun. I've really enjoyed using fresh fruit and will sort of continue to do so, and have already in fact started 2 more fresh fruit batches. So definitely on that path. But let's go back to where it began, the fruit press. Well, as I said at the time, DIY is not my strongest point, and hence the assembly of a flat pack was a bit of a mare. It probably took me twice as long as anybody else to do, but it is being so worth it. It cost about 70 quid, so that's sort of the amount of investment you would expect to see for one of those, but you know, effectively great fun. It's probably worth a mention that everything that I've used throughout this video has been sanitized when I used it. So that includes the sort of plate on the fruit press itself, and the sort of bag that the fruit went in, to all of the sort of demijohns, equipment, etc. that have been used throughout. Sanitization is obviously really a key part of all of the homebrew process, and perhaps I didn't sort of bring that out enough while I was sort of talking in the video. But phew, you know, the fruit press was assembled, and then we were into the actual fruit press process itself. And as you can see from the video, pretty naive going in with my first chopping of apples, and really needed to sort of cut them down or grate them down to a sort of much finer level. I have since found the solution, which is of course a pulping bucket, an attachment for a drill and a bucket, and really you throw the apples in, you sort of spin the drill on it, and it just pulps up the fruit to the appropriate level. So something that you can do much more quickly than the process I went through with grating. But honestly, you know, all of this is about living and learning and enjoying the process. So that fruit press fail certainly turned into a fruit press lesson learned. The addition of a Camden tablet was certainly a choice. You can wing it and go with some wild yeast, and even get fermentation straight off the yeast that's naturally in the apples. It's a bit of a gamble, and I think, you know, if I had more apples, I would have perhaps done a batch that did it that way. And in the future, if I get more apples, I will do that. But for me, it just wasn't quite worth the risk of having a bad batch. I really wanted to sort of make sure you get the quality at the end. But if ever I do have a spare capacity, it's something I will give a try in the future. The apples as well were an absolutely amazing surprise, just how sweet they were. I did expect them to come out a little sour, to be fair. I mean, they were sort of included fallings from the tree, but effectively they were really quite sweet. And that gave me a really high original gravity figure. I was ready to add some sugar just to make sure that the cider was in the 6% mark, but it actually came out at 7%, which is great. You know, that's sort of the target zone that I was hoping for. The natural sweetness was quite a surprise and gave us a stronger cider at the end of the day. The Nottingham yeast is definitely worth a mention. It's the first time I've used an ale yeast in a cider, and it did come with a bit of experimentation just to sort of see how it turns out. Typically I've used a champagne yeast or a specific cider yeast. Well, you know, based on a sample of only one, I confess, it was a really good choice, and actually left quite a good appley aroma and a strong drink at the end. So, you know, just the choice of Nottingham yeast, so far, so good. And in fact, I've used it again on one of my future fruit ciders. So again, you know, going to try that out and see how that continues to work. The adjustments I made before bottling, though, were more of personal choice. And actually the cider, as it brewed naturally, was wonderful, and I think for some tastes would have been absolutely spot on. I'm afraid I do have a little bit of a sweet tooth, and so prefer things just a little sweeter, but I do think it was quite perfect as it was for some tastes. And actually you could have just bottled that and gone with it. It was very, very, very tasty. However, I did make 2 adjustments. And one of them, you know, rather chaotically, was the addition of some sweetener. I think again about how I add sweetener after carbonation perhaps a little slower and a little more carefully in the future. And the second was glycerine. Now, I've used glycerine to some really great effect on turbo ciders in the past, where it adds a really sort of full mouthfeel and can take just a little bit of the edge off, especially if you're sort of drinking it quite quickly. So, you know, glycerine is a nice addition, and I thought it was going to be valuable in this case. I actually have second thoughts on that point now. First of all, I did calculate a very medium amount of glycerine, so it wasn't a huge amount by the volume, even though the volume was slightly lower than I had figured. But it still wasn't necessary. Glycerine will add a few additional sort of treats to your final brew. You know, it will actually sort of give you a little bit more fuller mouthfeel, it will give you a little bit more sort of natural sweetness, and it will perhaps just take a little of a harsher edge off. All of these things can be really valuable. Whether they were quite necessary this time, I think I may have over-egged my brew in that respect, and actually, you know, just the little bit of extra sweetener would have been fine. So the end result was great. It actually came out at around 7.1% by the calculation, and the adjusted taste was medium sweet, and the sort of starting taste prior to the additions was touching on dry. So it was, you know, a very, very successful first attempt, I hasten to add, at fresh apple cider. So thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Do please comment if you've got any thoughts or sort of lessons learned for me, because I'm learning as I go along. I'm a year into this hobby and still having lots of fun. So please do, you know, if you get a moment, like and subscribe. The button will be about here, and you know, please do enjoy the home brewing and let me know how you're getting on. Cheers, happy brewing.